no, stop. There it goes. That was weird.
Hello, everybody.
We're echoing.
There we go.
There it goes. That was weird. Hello, everybody.
Oh, now you're muted. Let's see. I can't actually hear you. Can everybody else?
Oh, now I'm here.
There you go.
That was like a whole couple dozen technical things all in a row, all going on. Good morning, everybody. I had playing in the background. I had echo. I had mute. I had all the things.
You didn't have coffee?
I didn't have coffee. Peggy took care of that.
Problem. You didn't have the coffee.
Thing.
Yeah, blame the coffee.
That's
always,
right.
Always blame the coffee.
Good morning, everybody. We're so happy to have you back for, what is this, our fourth live chat now on the runes?
Yeah, third or fourth, something like that.
Yeah. We're in our last and Dot and I were just chatting about being like, we're studied out. Yeah, we're a little studied out. It's been a lot.
I love the the nerdy study part, right? I totally love to do the nerdy study thing, but after so many weeks of it, I'm like, I'm just ready to actually move on and start actually using these things that we've been studying.
Yeah. I almost feel like I've been doing, have you been doing daily draws with runes or doing anything like that? So I've been doing daily draws. That's helped a little bit because at least I feel like I've had some practical alongside it, but I'm ready to read them in groups, right? Like in,
because I feel like so many of the things that I read, it's like, well, in context with this rune and in context with this rune, I'm like, but I'm just looking at the rune itself. And I feel like there's going to be a whole nother world that opens up once we start reading them in groups as they're meant to be, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I just realized my banner thing's on too. Yeah, I shouldn't be running anything this morning. There we go. Yeah, no, same. I feel like when I'm looking up the runes, I'm getting a lot of like, oh, this one, yeah, like you said, like, oh, it means this if it's with this rune or that rune. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the thing I'm really ready for and like to see how it's going to unfold. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Cillian says it's super fun to look at the connection. Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I mean, I think it's great to have a base. You need a base, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to actually, or even just doing a daily draw because I haven't even been doing that.
Yeah. That helps a bit. I've been trying to play with it too. And actually, I was a little rebel. What was it? Yesterday, I think it was. And I had done my daily tarot thing and I had all my cards out on the cloth. And I was like, well, instead of just drawing a rune, why don't I like select a small handful and then like cast them onto the cloth and whatever one's closest to like my daily draw, that's the one I'll use. And it was so fun.
That's cool.
I was like, I just want to see what they're gonna. I want to throw them, and I've been wanting to throw them more because I got my Forge of the Phoenix runes, and I'm obsessed with them. They're like the perfect weight, the perfect like sound, the perfect like shape. Everything. This did I show you? Yeah, these are the ones. I think I posted a photo in the group.
They are so cute. They're so you too. It's like, I don't know how it happens, but everybody who gets a set and then they post them like, oh, that's so you. Like,
yeah, it's like the right exact set for that person.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so I'm excited to start working with them too.
Yeah. Oh, Cillian says, I like using my daily draw as a look for this rune in the world or my life today. Oh, I like that idea. Like to see where you see the shape kind of thing. I love that. Yeah, I've been using it more like a kind of like an energy of the day or something to be aware of for the day. Mm-hmm. But I feel like one thing I've learned throughout this whole thing is I feel like whatever rune I feel like I'm working with just feels like it has more broad of a definition or broad of a message or whatever. I feel like I'm having, and maybe that's what I'll get in the casting and in the spreads and stuff, is I'll get a chance to see like how it works like less big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it feels like I feel like in studying it's like the major arcana, right? It's all big energies, but I think when you actually use them, it really relates more to kind of mundane as well. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I want to see how it breaks down because, you know, with, like you said, with we're like deep diving into each one, and I want it. I know that it can work almost like cartomancy, where you get these like snappy kind of fortune telly kind of readings. You can get like that sort of thing from it. But yeah, it's hard when I'm like looking at them, like you said, one at a time. And maybe that's part of it, because like I know when you're using like tarot in a small spread versus a large spread, it can feel very different. It's almost like their energy gets a little bit smaller the more the energy gets smaller the more like you're working with at a time. So yeah. Yep. So how's everybody else doing with your studies? Have you had anything new come up? Have you been doing any daily draws or like playing with casting yet? Or maybe you are already. I'd be super curious to hear what everybody else is doing. Oh, Madeline says, I made my own set of runes a couple days ago. Neat.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to doing that too.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see what you put together. I mean, no pressure. I'm sure that's like probably the word. You're like, yeah, I'm going to make something. And everybody's like, I can't wait to see what Dawn Michelle makes. And she's like, great.
Yeah, I was like, oh, now I have to make something good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Good Journeys Tarot says still 5 runes to go. So you're just in the last 5 for study. I think that extra week just to kind of get caught up or breathe really helped.
I think
part of me is, it's kind of weird. I'm on this fence of like, would it have been better for me to study them quicker and like just less time on each rune, or take more time? And I still can't figure out which would have been better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I think the study is good, but like I said, like at some point you have to just start doing. You have to start putting into practice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just, you know, just information just kind of crammed in your brain.
Yeah, it's kind of like playing a game, right? You read the rules and you go through all the instructions, and some of it just starts to go over your head until you actually play it and like see how the rules are going to work in game. You know, that was a really easy reference, but there you go.
I think it totally works. Yeah, I think that totally fits, because it's just like there's only until I think you actually start applying it. It's just information at that point. It doesn't have any like real world context, I guess.
Yeah. That is true. Yeah, Cillian says, I do daily draw with some rune dice a friend gave me, and I cast my runes. Oh, you're Jennifer Bisson. That's right. I actually read your post about casting. You had a whole big blog post. I don't know if you saw that yet, Dawn. It was so good. Yeah, she did a whole big blog post of like in the group, and it like shows some examples of casting and like kind of how she works with casting. But she uses those rune staves, which are more like they're more like the stick-shaped runes, so that when you cast them, they can actually form rune shapes themselves as well as be runes.
Interesting.
Really cool, actually. I thought that was really neat.
That's cool. Yeah, I have Jennifer. I have lots of your notes in my journal. Posted in the group. I like copy Jennifer says, oh, blah, blah.
Yep. It's that yours are like the first comments I look for. I'm like, what Jennifer say?
Yep. Yeah, me too.
Yep. I love it. So this week we're basically just wrapping up kind of our experiences with this last set of runes. And then we're going to talk about what's coming up in the study groups. So you sort of know what the format is going forward, because we're kind of in that tail end now where we're going to be moving into more practical application. Wow, you're needy, buddy. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Oh, what happened here? Oh, and you can come back to it as you find a new book or source. It's always interesting to add that information into what you already know and experience. Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, you can keep kind of layering. I think that's the thing. I was really close to picking up, you know, that big book you have, Dawn, the Exploring the Runes?
Yeah, the Taking Up the Runes, this one?
Taking Up the Runes.
On my desk.
That's the one. I was this close to buying it and going, oh, let's go deeper. And then I'm like, no, I need to work with them for a bit and then choose if I want to add another layer from there. So
yeah, I've been skimming it, but kind of my plan is like I'm dipping in and out of it, but my plan is actually to kind of dive more into it as I'm actually working with the runes. So it's more using it as a guidebook type of thing rather than a study book, I guess.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's kind of what I've been doing with this book so far, as I've been with my daily draws. I just quickly refer in here to remind myself about the rune. And this one's been working good because it's portable and it's easy for me to carry around with my stuff. So I've been doing that with it. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to unfold for sure. So yeah, Oh my gosh, this has been. I was just telling you too before we started, but I should mention it for everybody else. This has been like the sleepiest week. It's been nuts.
For me too. I like. Is there something going on? I'm like so unmotivated this week. I'm just like, well, like I told you, like I took Wednesday off and was just like, I'm just gonna watch movies today.
This is what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. I haven't been getting very much done. I feel like I've just been really slow and sleepy. And yeah, I don't know if it's something astrologically or like what's happening.
That's what I was kind of wondering, because like a lot of people keep saying that. Like, I just don't feel it this week. Like, yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't feel it this week.
Yeah, nothing's happening. We'll see. Maybe this is over.
Really quick. It's like yesterday, I'm like, it's Friday already? How did that even happen?
It literally snuck up. Yeah, like actually. So, well, let's do a recap of what we managed to retain from our studies of this last ed, which fair warning, for me, not a ton. Not a ton on this last one. This poor last one it didn't get the same love attention.
Yeah. I'm hoping to go back to it and kind of expand on it, because I feel like I just wasn't feeling it with this one. And I don't know if it's just timing, or maybe I wonder if it's like, is it the context of the runes in this group that I just don't find them that exciting? I wondered.
A lot of these I feel like are almost like, I want to say that a lot of them feel like they're sort of almost encompassing smaller energies. Like they're like overview kind of feeling. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but for sure a few of these are like kind of just not generic. That's the wrong word, but like they feel like they just cover so much ground, like they're like a big umbrella runes. Maybe
it could be. I feel like I just wasn't like, I feel like I just wasn't quite as excited to dive into them, and I think part of it is because I feel like this grouping was a little bit easier to understand. I guess like the
I didn't really hit any blockages with these. I feel like they all.
Okay, that makes sense. I get that. I mean, I think I posted a couple of things in the group where I found a couple of things where I was like, a little like, well, it says this, but then it also says this, and I'm a little, unsure. I think it was the water one.
Oh, Laguz.
Yes, but other than that, I felt like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. Like it close, it makes sense. So maybe that's what it is. Is just it wasn't as confusing, I guess, or maybe, I don't know. Either that or like Jennifer said, maybe just so overloaded that it's like, I'm done.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Sometimes you get overloaded, so the start is more captivating and then you get burnt out. I think that's a thing. But also, I do agree, like in the first two ets, especially the second one, I feel like there was more runes where there was like almost like a debate happening with myself of like, like you said, like, is it this or is it that? And then figuring out where the merge point was with those two things. And then I think that made it almost more interesting, because I knew that some of the meanings of those runes were going to get tipped a little bit from what I thought I understored. Whereas I didn't really experience that with this one at all, I don't think. I don't think there was anywhere I was like surprised by what it meant, if that makes sense.
I didn't other than that one instance with Laguz. That was pretty much it. And it was only because I read one thing in a book and read another thing in a book, and I went, oh, well, I get both sides of that. I'm just not sure where I fall.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think the rest of them felt like, I don't know, they just felt like they connected a little bit easier. Maybe that's what it was. They didn't quite, I don't want to say struggle, but yeah, like you said, there just wasn't quite the drama there in with the
yeah, I know. It was like there wasn't the friction to make it more like exciting to uncover. It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of, that makes sense. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, good. We're good. Well, let's do a quick recap. So we started off this with Tiwaz, and this is Tears Ayat. Oh my gosh, Tears at, and then this one is also associated with Tyr directly, isn't it? Or am I mistaken about that?
Yeah, it's associated with the god Tyr, who was what I have. So he embodies the principle of justice, bravery, honor. I think he was like he was the warrior god, but he was also like the god who I think was kind of like their judge and jury.
Yeah.
If I remember it now, it's been a few weeks or a month or two at this point since I've done my kind of rune or my Norse mythology brush up, but I think that's who he was. So he was kind of like the God's judge and jury, the one they went to whenever, they had an issue.
Yeah. And this one I feel like what I got from this, and I don't have my notes in front of me, that would have been really smart, but I feel like what I got from this was sort of that like fiery warrior-y kind of energy, but one like associated with truth. And I think that's what I had associated with this like T shape of the rune, was the idea that it was like a truth-based sort of warrior, somebody who like kind of truth, honor, those kinds of concepts. I'm curious if like kind of what everybody else got from this too. And Anne says, is it possible? Hi, Bruno. Can you hi? Is it possible to have just one keyword for each rune? I'm having difficulty remembering what each rune means. Maybe it's my age. No, it's not your age, I don't think. No. I think if you pick one that really stands out to you, like for this one, I picked warrior is like my primary.
Yeah. I have a list of the keywords, but I've just been picking one because otherwise I did the same thing with tarot when I was first learning tarot. Yeah. I kind of had to pick like one key thing that would stick in my mind that I could associate with that particular rune or card or whatever, and then could build on it from there. Yeah. Because otherwise, I think it's overwhelming.
I agree. And then Jennifer says, I tend to have one word come to mind for each rune. A word, it says, but I think she means rune. Some of them are fairly traditional and some are my own. Yeah, and I agree. I learned tarot the same way. I pick kind of a primary energy and then I go from there. And then also, let's see, Tiwaz often connects to focus for me, like shooting an arrow. Oh, I like that with the shape. You have to focus on the target and focus on keeping your aim steady. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. And my keyword also, I try to connect to the shape of the rune so I can remember which one goes to which. That's really smart. I try to do the same because if you build that association, then it's easier when you pull them to remember them. Oh my God, are you so happy? Sorry, he's distracting, but he doesn't usually get this cuddly. So I'm like, okay, we're going with it.
Yeah, take it while you can.
Yeah. So that was really it for me. I feel like when I draw this, I feel like there's a call to action or a call to like sort of step up and engage a bit. That's really what I came away from it with, right?
Yeah, me too. One of the things that I found too was that there was a connection. I think it was in Taking Up the Runes where she had mentioned that this one and then Berkana, that follows it, is kind of like the masculine, feminine. Of this, but then later on, which we'll get to, there's a whole nother masculine as association too that works with Arcana as well. But I think that kind of connected for me. It's like, okay, this is like the sort of masculine outward facing energy.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. I came away with a bit of that vibe too, but I know where you're going with the next masculine one too. It's like they're almost like they're two parts of the same energy in a way. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. So that's
it's also like, it's phallic looking. So
it is, yeah.
that masculine energy connects there for me too.
Totally. So then we move into Berkana.
Yeah, or I've seen it also with an O as well. So it's again one of those that has different spellings.
Like an O where? Like in the?
I think at the ends. Let me look here. It's in Taking Up the Runes. I think she calls it Berkano.
Oh, instead of Berkano.
Those different, spellings.
You just don't want to go down, do you?
Of course, I can't find it. And she was the one that connected it to the masculine and feminine, and being that they follow each other.
Funny enough, the image is Berkano. So, okay.
Yeah, so she spells it with an O at the end, and I've seen that a couple of other places too.
Okay. It's really hard to say. I will say that the imagery for this one that sticks is this one. Have you heard this reference about like breasts and like nurturing and mother's milk and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I also heard the one that if you turn it back the right way, it's breasts and a pregnant belly.
Oh, like this way. Oh, yeah. That works too. Yeah. Same kind of shape, right? Yeah, right. I like this. And this one feels very like mothery, like nurturing.
Yeah, I agree. If you turn it the other way, so it's like mountain peaks, then I heard that as a womb.
Oh, so, yeah. So like
but they all connect to the same imagery, which is really interesting.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Oh, Good Journeys Tarot says, did anyone come across it being referred to as the swan? No.
I don't. Oh,
I
wait.
didn't
You know,
either.
I did think I saw something about that. Of course, then I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, way too far. Mostly I saw it connected to motherhood, birth, and birthing and new projects and things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah, a lot of my takeaway notes were like about once you have the thing, whether it's like a project or whatever it is, how are you going to feed it and nurture it and like care for it?
Yeah.
And like that sense of sort of responsibility and being in charge of it and something in your stewardship, that kind of thing. A lot of those sort of words jumped out at me for sure.
I thought I saw something about a swan, but I guess not. I just flipped through the book, but
Didn't spot
I
it.
swear
Yeah.
I came across that word too. So it might have been in a different book, but I can't remember. I can't remember what it was in relation to.
Good Journeys Tarot. Yeah, I'd be curious what you remember from it or what. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Jennifer says I have a swan connection with the Valkyries and Algies. So did you see that in a book, Good Journeys, or was it somewhere else? I'm just curious if there was any like how it associated it, I guess, with the meaning. If you remember, that would be awesome to share. But yeah, this was one of those ones that just felt super straightforward to me. It's like, oh yeah, this is kind of empressy, kind of like, you know, nurture and care for. Those were the big takeaways for me.
Yeah, for me as well. And then I also have a note that it's like it's this note to remind yourself too that you have to nurture new growth with care. Like you have to be really careful when you're growing new things. And I think, what is this, the one that connects to the birch tree? Yeah.
Yeah. There's like a fragility, not a fragility to this card, but a fragility to what it is that you're nurturing, right? Like that it's, you have to be gentle kind of thing. Oh, Good Journeys Tarot says this is from the God's Magical Alphabet about the swan. Oh, that's interesting. Buddy, I have to hold the card. He's like, no. Look,
no, at me.
Love you today.
It's probably because I poked him a couple times. He's having a blood sugar test. Hi, buddy.
Maybe he figures if he cuddles up, he'll forget to do the next one.
Or the opposite. He's like, yay, attention.
Yeah.
So did we have anything else that anybody wants to share on Berkana? I think I'm good. Are you good?
I did note that Greg in the group, he mentioned that in another reference that he was looking at, that it talked about the fertility of self that fuels symbolic growth. So it's not just always about nurturing other things, it's also about nurturing your own personal growth.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, like what are you feeding into your own path, and like how are you sort of, how are you doing the work to continue? That makes a lot of sense.
I think like a lot of times, like, you know, we mother other things, we mother other people, but we almost always forget to mother ourselves, right?
It's true. So there's a self-care element here.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely picked that up on it too. Don't forget, as you're nurturing everything else, that you have to nurture yourself as well. It's like that whole like airplane thing, right? You're supposed to put your own mask on first.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Okay. So this one I actually had a little bit of fun with because I did get some new things. This was the one where I got, I would say, a couple new things out of it. This is Ingwaz.
Ingwaz, yeah.
And this is essentially like the wild horse, or Hello, Christine.
This one for me, kind of, it was, what's the other, radio?
Yeah, the other chariot one, or the.
Yeah, there was like, I don't know if it's because they're both like horse, or in a lot of the stuff that I was reading, they're both like about movement and about change. I was having, with this one, I guess I did have a little bit more trouble because I was trying to figure out how is it different? Like, because we've already seen this kind of energy.
Same.
And I don't know if I really came up with anything wonderful other than a lot of people had talked about, is this one the one with the, now I'm trying to remember. So radio is like the horse and rider, and Awaz is just the horse, right?
Yeah, like I feel like with what I came away with, because I had that same sort of friction, and then a couple things stood out to me. Number one, with Rido, I feel like it's a lot about momentum and movement and change, and then like kind of driving yourself forward and like your determination and very like solar plexus energy. Whereas I feel like with Ingwaz, there's a lot more about the connection between the rider and the horse. There's a much deeper bond, and it's about like, to me, it felt like it was about like relying on that mode of transportation, not only as a physical vehicle, which it could be, but also relying on it as like sort of an ally or support. Like if you were, and I kept thinking of it in like kind of role-playing game terms, like this is like one of your allies on your team, and like how are you relying on this extra support? And like, so, and somebody pointed out, and I can't remember who, that this shape, it's like two Laguz facing, but it's almost like the head of two horses and their noses touching. And so there's some of this that to me is about the bond. And I'm about to make another geeky Avatar reference. But in the Avatar, like, you know how I think they even call it like Sohulo or something like that. But like when they
things bond the horse.
Yeah. And they actually form a bond, and it's that rider and that horse, or that creature, that rider and that creature like bonded permanently. And it kind of makes me think of that sort of deeper connection. And let's see, what does Jennifer say here? Yeah, I think Ingwaz connects more to spiritual journeys versus physical journeys, the fetch or spirit companion. Yes. And then Whale Song said the bond of a horse and a rider is based on faith, because faith was another thing that came out from my study of this rune, was this concept of like, you have to have a certain amount of trust and faith in that allyship, in that support. So yeah, it definitely goes to a different place for me.
Yeah. That I can connect with. I grew up riding horses, so it makes sense to me. I mean, there is definitely a bond and a trust. I mean, I grew up like show jumping horses like competitively, so
wow, really?
A trust there between your horse and yourself, because you're jumping these big 6-foot fences.
So
that's an
awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that about you. That's so cool.
Yeah.
In love with you right now.
Oh, he can't have this. His sugar's too high. Sorry, buddy. All done. Nope, sorry. All done. You're right. That was what it was. I had a treat near me because I was feeding the other dog, and that's why he was loving on me. So it really was about the food, not me.
It's about the food. Yeah.
Good to know. Let's see. Jennifer says there's a twin energy too, the kind of two halves to the same whole. Yeah. Like almost like it feels like almost like a spiritual soulmate kind of energy, like who is in your corner. That's kind of one of the things that came out for me.
I think, Jennifer, you also mentioned a connection to Freya and Freya in the group as well.
Oh.
Which is, but you could think they're twins, they're opposites, but they come together to rule. So I thought that was really interesting. I made a note of that. Like I said, I have lots of Jennifer's notes in my journals.
Nice. So yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot for me to add, although I did hear some people talking about how this can refer more to the horse itself than the rider. I don't know if I mentioned that already. I may have said that already, but yeah, that was the other thing that I got from this. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Kay says like a twin flame regardless of how. Yeah, I totally get that. So then we move on to a very similar looking rune, only with it's instead of two Laguz nose to nose, it's two Wunjos nose to nose, basically. But it still looks like an M, a fancy M to me.
It does, yeah.
This is Menaz. And basically my main keyword for this is like humankind, society as a whole, people, how we connect to each other, how we fit into the whole of, I guess, humanity and society. That was my main takeaway. And to me, I feel like that's such an easy read in a way. There's so many ways you could pull this. Like if you had a spread or a cast, it's like, oh, this is about my relationship to everything else and everyone else, or I guess the betterment of the society as a whole, that kind of thing. That's what jumps out at me from this. So
the one key that I really picked out of that with all of my studies is that a lot of times it's related to human potential. So it's not necessarily where we are right now, and it's probably really potent right at this moment, but it's not necessarily about where we are right now, but where we can be, the potential that we have.
I love the word potential with this. That's so good.
And also the couple of different resources I also talked about, like planetary consciousness, and then connecting to the collective unconsciousness of humanity as well, in order to grow and move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, that's what I had on this one.
Yeah, I felt like that one wasn't like, that one totally, like, you know, made sense. It didn't like, didn't really struggle. I mean, again, it's not that they're any less than the other ones. They just made a little bit more sense to me than the other.
I also wonder if, because we've gotten, by this time, we kind of got the rhythm of like understanding kind of how the runes are approaching their subject. Like in the first one, it was like surprised that they were bigger than we thought, right? And then I feel like as we moved through, we were less and less surprised that they were like that. So then we started looking at them through that lens. So now by this third et, it's almost like, oh yeah, of course this is bigger than that. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think it's so funny because in that Taking Up the Runes book, she mentions that the as you go through your study, it gets easier as you go, which I was like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. But it actually kind of does, because you kind of get like the hang of it, sort of, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like you're like, okay, I get it now. Like this is how they're gonna go. And also I think it's been interesting looking at them in ets, but almost sometimes like this whole et to me feels like just very broad. I know I say that about every one, but they do each et definitely has a different feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this one feels like more global in a way, or more like, I don't know how to describe it. This is the thing though, like I guess the longer that you study them, the like more that sort of sinks in, and then you don't have, it's, yeah, I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's like it's almost bigger than you can actually put it into words, which is, I think, why there is so much information. I mean, look at this thing. This thing is as big as a tarot book, right? And tarot has 78 cards to learn. These are 24 little symbols. And it has as much, if not more, information. And I think that maybe it's just, I feel like the more we go on, it's like the less I'm able to really cohesively explain what each one means, but it kind of like clicks on a more intuitive level, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like with I feel like there's the sort of surface level, which is where I was always at with the runes before. Like I had this like surface level kind of general keyword understanding, which I think is a great place to start. But as we've been studying, it's like there's like the tip of the iceberg is the keyword, and then everything else is underneath, and you can't really describe the underneath until you're actually like pulling it in a reading, or you're like pulling it for yourself and you're like, oh, okay, this connects to this and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's why we're really eager to get to that next stage, because we want to see how that below the water iceberg stuff is gonna kind of influence our reading.
Yeah, I want to see how it actually works.
Yeah, same. So we are on Laguz. This is one of my favorites. This is another one that to me was really easy. It's water, it's flow, it's emotion, it's being kind of supported and nurtured in that kind of universal way. If you give into it, you surrender to it, and you flow with it, then, you know. So to me, this is like, and another reference I think I found was about Isa and the concept that this is the ice melted, right? Like we had the ice in the earlier et, and now it's melted and it's flowing, and there's like life-giving properties here and that kind of stuff. So this feels very like what you could be watering or nurturing your journey with. Whereas Berkana is like about nurturing. This is like, okay, now that you're nurturing it, and here's how you do that. You let go and you give in, and there's surrender here. I don't know. What did you get out of this one?
This is the one that I was like, okay, yeah, I'm on board with it. Totally get it. I've got this one figured out. And then I read that whole section about it connecting to the masculine energy, not the feminine, and that it's more like the masculine seed that goes into the womb of, say, like the Berkana thing. But if you think about it, so if you think about in Norse mythology, they associate lunar and emotion with masculine. Solar with feminine. So then I was like, okay, well, that totally connects for me too. So this was one of those ones that at first I was like, yeah, I got it, totally figured it out. And then that whole taking it to the different side of things and looking at it from more of a like the flow, one of the connections I saw was like the waters of life, the seed of life. That's a very masculine principle.
I'm tripping out a little bit because I swear I got that from the next rune, from Ingwaz.
Oh, I got it in that rune too. I mean, that one definitely, and most of the references totally connected to the masculine energy. But
so I'm tripped out a little bit. So like, you can't, like, not you, but like the proverbial, you can't give a seed in 2 different runes. It's not okay. Like, you need to pick one.
And the other thing was like, it also was just, this was the one that kind of tripped me up a little bit, because it was like, okay, so it's the masculine seed, but then it's also the feminine womb. Because if you look at like the artwork on Nina's card there.
Yeah, totally is womb. Like,
it's totally womb energy. But then if you look at the shape itself, that's also, again, we're back to that phallic shape again, which a lot of the runes actually are. But
I mean,
so I was like, I totally had it down until I read that. And then I'm like, okay, but if you think about how they approached masculine and feminine energy, which is the complete opposite of how we tend to see it today, or definitely how my personal practice, how I work with it in my personal practice, it does make sense. But it totally tripped me up, because I'm like, well, now I don't know that I really, I mean, I get, water, emotion, get all that. But then you throw, okay, so if it has a bent of masculine energy to it versus feminine, that kind of changes the context, because now we're about shooting energy forth, right?
Right.
Just pulling it in, not to be descriptive, but
it's kind of a trippy thing though, because, and this is going to sound very sacrilegious, I'm sure, to some people, but like, I kind of feel like at a certain point you also have to work with the meanings that are going to work with you in a way, like, because I feel like I'm not going to be able to see this. I can see the case made for it and understand it, like, and cerebrally get it. But when it comes to like casting runes, I don't know that I'll be able to see this in that way, because I see this so much as water and flow. And for me, that's such a feminine energy. So it's like, I feel like to some degree, there's a bent, like there's a personal bent. But that's true with any divination system though, you know, where it's like your own personal.
Even having read all of that, I think if that were to come up in a reading for me, I would go feminine intuition, water, you know, all of that. And that could partially just be because that's how I personally work with that energy and my personal associations for it.
Exactly.
But just in studying, I thought it was interesting, but I'm like, I mean, it tracks. It totally tracks if you think back to how their associations were. But like you said, for me personally, that doesn't really work.
And especially when you see the two, like Tyr and Laguz side by side, you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it's interesting though. It's really
interesting. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I get it.
The stubbornness in me is like, yeah, but no. Very interesting, but no, we're not doing that. That's my approach. But this is interesting. Yeah. So Whale Song says, I thought Laguz a seed and Ingwaz the shoot coming out of the seed, and I almost feel like it's the other way around. Whereas like Ingwaz, that's not me anyways. Ingwaz or Ingwaz being the seed, which we'll get into this one next. But and Laguz being that shoot coming out. That would make sense if you wanted to go like, you could actually, I guess, go what do you want to say, like there could be like a linear movement where it's like you have Ingwaz as the seed, then Laguz as that seed like starting to sprout and grow, and then Tiwaz is the full potential of that seed, or the full like manifestation of that seed, if we were following all three through a masculine sort of timeline, I guess. Auguries and signals said something good here. I feel like the difficulty is going to be in trying to bring the meanings down to smaller ideas when trying to relate multiple runes together in a reading, since they're so big. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to go, because I've really never done it.
Yeah, me either. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I've kind of had that same thought, because everything we read is like, it's these really big energies and big ideas. And it's like, how do you take that and
distill it down
in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because like, not to keep referring it back to the tarot, but that's like my base of reference. We have the major arcana for that, but then we have the minor arcana that is the little things. And so we already have that kind of balance built in, and I feel like in the runes, it's both in all the runes at the same time.
Yeah, I almost feel like what you need is like, if I could chart this, like in my head, a chart just popped into my head, right? Where you have like all the runes, like it's literally a spreadsheet in my brain. You have all the runes, and then you have like their major meaning and then their minor meaning. And I feel like you almost need 2 sets of keywords, or one set of 2 keywords for every single rune where it's like big and then mundane, big and then mundane, big and then mundane. I might actually do that because I feel like
you should totally do that. I think that would be good.
Yeah, I feel like that would help me because right now when I look in my notes, I have like just a grouping of keywords for each rune, but some of those keywords are very major arcana style energy and some are much more minor arcana energy. And if I just worked with 2 keywords for every rune that had, you know what I mean? Like as far as its light side or whatever, and maybe a 3rd column, maybe 4 columns, because then I'd have to have like major upright, major reversed if there's a reversal. So maybe. Anyways, I'm planning a spreadsheet. I'm gonna stop now, but I think that might help me.
I think it would. I mean, I look at like going back to that tarot reference. And for me, every tarot card has a light and shadow meaning. So I essentially in my brain, I have 2. I mean, granted, it's context and all of that. That's not even talking about that. But just in looking at the cards themselves, every one has a light and shadow meaning for me. So that's my base where I come from. And I don't read reversals, so it's totally based on context. But I feel like that's the kind of the same for this, where we have maybe not so much light and shadow, but big energy or like macrocosm and microcosm type of thing.
Yeah, totally. So it'll just be about like figuring that out, which I think that'll be fun to play with as we start doing the spreads and stuff. And Jennifer says, I find that looking for the intersections, how the energies interact, is how the runes come out in a reading. So like how they're playing with each other. Sometimes thinking about how the rune works inside me versus in the greater world is what works for me. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So sort of looking at me and then everything else and the interactions and such. Yeah.
See, this is why I'm ready to like get on to actually using them.
I know. Let's talk about Ingwaz. We're so close. We're the home stretch. So we're talking about like seed. This one, the funny thing about Ingwaz or Inguz for me is there's 2 sort of meanings that I keep coming back to. One is that idea of seed, in which I very much see this almost like the Aces of Tarot, where it sort of encapsulates all the potential that could be, like that seed, that pure potential, that undiluted potential. And then the other thing I get from this is this idea of sort of boundaries and sacred space. And I can't remember, unless I'm mixing this up with another rune, which I don't think I am. No, I don't think I am. There's this sort of space inside. It makes me think of the world card and how the dancer's in the center and there's the like wreath all around. It kind of that card in the tarot makes me think of things like boundaries and sacred space within that and having the freedom to move within that. But these 2 meanings to me they're not merging properly. So I can't figure out where the connecting point, I don't think, is, unless I put that in my notes and forgot. But I don't think I quite figured out that bridge between sort of sacred space and seed.
Yeah, I know, I'm following you. I feel like there's 2, like, because a lot of what I picked up on was more about family and ancestry, and I'm reading off my notes here. And then it being associated with agriculture and fertility and inward and outward growth. So you could get that as a seed, but then, yeah, you do have this idea of like the container, and definitely makes the container shape. And yeah, I'm with you. I don't really know how those 2 ideas really live in the same space.
Yeah, I was just like referring back to Nina's book, because her keywords are fruitfulness, fertility, gestation, internal growth, family lines, DNA, bodily awareness. Oh, Peggy's sneezing. It'll be going for a little bit. Oh, and now Bruno's gonna howl. We're good. But yeah, like you said, it's got ancestors, new life, integration, and masculine. I don't know, like, thoughts from everybody in the room. I'm curious. Yeah, because I don't know. This one was one where I feel like I haven't landed on that like meaning that just clicks really easily.
Yeah, I haven't either. I mean, I see it more as like I guess I've been looking at it more as like the one of the notes I have is like the great river of life flowing through our DNA from our ancestral path. So somewhere there was a mention of this shape being related to the structure of DNA, and I picked that up in a couple of different books.
That would make sense with the legs, because when it has the little, because this one also sometimes has the little legs coming up the top and the bottom, and that does look like DNA, which is really cool as an image. I really like that. Jennifer says the shape of Ingwaz as the diamond without the extra legs is kind of the structure that gives new energy its form. It's how an idea becomes a reality. So again, sort of that seed energy. So I'm trying to remember where I got that whole sacred space boundaries container kind of feeling, but maybe, you know what, seed and container to me actually are both very, oh, that's what it was. I remember now. I got the image, I'm pretty sure, of a magical circle in ritual work, in magical work, in witchcraft, right? You cast a circle and then you build energy within that circle. So you're building and building and building potential so that when you're ready to release that energy towards a purpose, you can do that because you've created a container to build energy within. I think that was actually where I ended up kind of getting the bridge between the idea of like a sacred space or like a contained space that feels good and like safe and whatever, and also seed and potential.
Energy. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what ended up.
I most of my notes are just more about like it's associated with the fertility and the ancestry and things like that.
Gotcha.
I haven't landed on anything solid yet.
Yeah, I think the magical circle was the closest I got. Jennifer says, for me, Ingwaz is about the harvest and the idea of sacrifice now for the future and the idea that you will give more now for a later gain. That makes me think of like almost like weirdly planting bulbs, how you plant them and then they need to sit for a while before they grow. Like they have to go through that sort of dormancy period, which is interesting. So yeah, I don't fully know how this one's going to play for me when I start reading with it more.
Oh,
and I haven't.
This was the other rune where it was connected back to Berkana as the male counterpart.
Yeah.
This is the rune where the energy is stored and then is released. So that kind of ties back into your container, your sacred space, sacred circle.
Had to sneeze. Okay. Yeah, it does. That totally works. And the idea, like, it's interesting to me, this is what I was saying about sort of if we think of that masculine sort of timeline and we look at like seed and then shoot and then like, I don't know, maybe this is like the three why does the masculine have three and then the feminine only has one? but they all three seem to, these all three seem to have that more masculine energy according to like what the books are saying. I don't know.
What if you put them around in order? Then you have the masculine outward energy. You have he plants the seed in the,
and then it just sits there like as potential almost.
And it sits there until it's ready to be released. What follows? Where are we at?
Yeah, I put them out of, okay, so it actually goes, if we were to bring in Berkana, it goes Tiwaz, then Berkana, then Laguz, and then.
So if you look at it, we could be totally just doing our own thing here. But if you look at it as there's the masculine principle, the feminine principle, and then the seed is planted so that it can gestate and sit in its container and gain power.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm totally making that up. But
I know, but I'm down for it. I totally get where you're going. Yeah, I think
this is my brain having, wanting everything. Everything needs to be like, it's like, I don't know, my OCD kicking in. Everything needs to be
like there has to be a way to understand the timeline, right? I know I'm the same way. But you could also look at, because these two start off the et, right? There's a part of me that's like, okay, like you said, masculine, feminine, and these are like almost like the parenty kind of energies, and then these are like the active energies. But I'm going to take it a different direction and go that this could be masculine and this could be feminine, or you could reverse those, and this could be the feminine, and then this could be the masculine. But we're seeing a repeated theme, kind of like almost like this is like the taking care of, because really Tiwaz being the warrior is very much masculine nurturing in a way, and Berkana being feminine nurturing, and then we have sort of masculine action, feminine action. What does that look like, right? And you can
how it affects the world.
Yeah, interesting.
It is interesting. We're so nerdy.
I know we really are. It's so true. Let's see. Oh yeah, Jennifer says, for me, Ingwaz is about the harvest and the idea of sacrifice. Oh, I read that already. And the idea of gain more now for later gain. That's where I got that gestation idea. That's right. Sorry, I thought that was a new comment. So then we come to our last two runes where there's some debate about the order. Do we want to do Othala and then Dagaz, or the other way around?
Either way. Which way does Nina have? I think she has it.
Othala and then Dagaz.
Othala and then Dagaz. Which for me, in all of the majority of the books that I have, they're flipped the other way. But after my research, I think I agree with Nina's. The words just totally dropped out of my head. Ordering, where I feel like that the kind of coming home and then to the awakening, I feel like that tracks better for me. But I've seen it both ways for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like Othala, this, to me, the word that always jumps into my mind when I pull this is like ancestral home, or this idea of like legacy and like this greater thing of what are we leaving behind? Like where do we end up? Like, so this isn't like, you know, okay, if I'm going to think of it in practical terms, this isn't like your first family home. This is like the place that you're retiring to, where your kids come for Christmas and that kind of thing, right? Like I almost feel like this is that, like, I almost said final resting place, but I definitely don't mean like death necessarily. But like, yeah, exactly. It's the place where you've really put down deep roots, where when you're gone, somebody can kind of come in and take that over. So to me, this is like, legacy is one of the words that sticks out really strong for me, for a keyword for this. But where did you sort of land with
I kind of landed with it being, yeah, definitely like that ancestral home. And for me, it was kind of like a grounding back into your roots. Like this is the place where you're, you know, I was trying to think of another word besides ground, but really, yeah, ground back into your roots. But I also think of it as kind of, I think it was Jennifer that actually mentioned, and we keep throwing all of Jennifer's words out here, but I think it was like also a cycle. And I could totally see that, because if you think of it as being your final home, that's where the new generation is going to come, right? And so it's not, when you think of it in terms of like an ancestry or in terms of your lineage, it's not the end. That's where the next generation will now grow up and move on and do their own thing, and what you leave behind. So it's like your roots really down in there.
I just got really excited when we were talking.
Beginning.
Yeah, because I was just, as you were talking, I was picturing this shape, right? See if I can do this backwards. But if we started from here and we go up and around and then we end up back here, we're kind of ending up in the same place, sort of. And you know what that made me think? Further along. This actually makes me think of the hero's journey. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so there's this concept of like, you go out and you have the big adventure and you learn the things and you have the challenges, but then there's the return. This feels like the return. It's like, how are you coming back after? I love that reference. It like popped into my head as you were talking. I was like, it's the return. It's the return from the hero's journey.
That's how I saw it too. Which I guess being at the end of the 24 runes totally makes sense in that way too.
Except if you view Dagaz as that like actual turning point. Like you've returned and now time is going to turn and there's going to be another opportunity to go out, right?
Now you're going to move on to the next phase.
Yeah, exactly. So, and somebody just said, I think it was Jennifer, about, I tend to end with Othala personally, though I've seen it both ways, plus the Uthark way where it ends in Fehu. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. There's that idea of returning to Fehu. And Othala reminds me of homeland and ancestral property, but there's a sense too of the ancestors being there, that they may be buried on your property. That totally makes sense. Yeah, coming back to like, again, that's that idea of final resting place that jumped into my head. And Madeline says, for me, Othala is inheriting and passing on your traditions and values, which makes a lot of sense too. That comes back to like legacy and the idea of what are you kind of passing
on to the next. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Yep. Ancestral memory loop on to the next, says Whale Song. Yeah. Totally.
I like that.
There's also a reference I heard somewhere. I can't remember where I first got this, but it's really stuck. This concept of like when you're on a personal growth path, it's kind of like a spiral staircase. You keep returning to the same point technically, but you're a little higher up each time. Like you grow a little more each time. So your perspective shifts as you go up this path, but it feels like you're just in a loop, but you're not. You're spiraling upward. So you keep returning to the same place, but you're a little different each time. And this kind of feels a little bit like that concept of that spiral staircase.
Totally feels like my life.
Yeah, same.
Going back to the same spot, but I'm a little bit further along. I swear, every time a little bit further along.
just a little bit, but it feels like you're stuck, in like a Groundhog Day kind of experience. But you are changed. It's like that hero's journey and the return and stuff. Auguries and signals. I get the impression that, or got the impression that Othala is placed last because it is a mirror for Fehu. Fehu is movable wealth and Othala is inherited wealth. They are very much two sides, right?
Yeah, that's a great connection.
Yeah, it is. So our last rune of all of the Ets, of all of them,
Hey,
Dagaz.
we made
Daybreak is what I've got in my head for this one.
Yeah. That's what I have too. Where it's like the awakening, one of the things I wrote down was like it's the period of transition, moving from the dark into the light in terms of like your enlightenment. So if you think of, you've gone through this whole journey, you've come back to your ancestral home or where your roots are, and now you're ready to move on because you have this new knowledge, this new, you know, your second cycle kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's almost like this captures that moment between the world and the fool. You know what I mean? You've completed the journey, but you haven't yet started the new one, but you're just like, you've got that. It's like that. I keep rotating my hand because I literally feel like it's like the
like
wheel has like a click, right? Like okay, click, we're in that in-between place. Because this feels like liminal space, that space between night and day. And yeah, Jennifer says Dagaz is also the idea of a daily cycle of a brand new day. How each morning you have the chance to start over. I really like that idea of like, you don't have to be stuck in a pattern you don't have to be stuck, right? Like you can choose to approach each day fresh, each moment fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote my own name with this rune, and my kid was like, "Oh, it's your rune." I'm like, totally, it's my rune.
It is your rune. I love that. That's so true, though.
I'm like, but that's how I approach each day. I get up and go, okay, doesn't matter what happened yesterday. Today's a new day. We're gonna move on, whether it was good or bad, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
move on. A new day,
fresh start. Shake up the Etch-a-Sketch. That wasn't really a reference, but yeah.
Oh, totally. That's my every morning. Yep, shake up the extra steps. Let's move on.
Yep, start over. So that's it. We made it through all of them.
I know. I'm so happy that we're finally like. I don't mean to say like we're finally done. Like really, you know, like it's time to go and actually put them into action. So
you know what? Today's chat is kind of like our Dagaz, really, because we're wrapping up the phase and then we get to move into a new phase. I love it. Yeah, Whale Song says the image. Oh, where did it go? Did I lose the comment? The image looks like both sunrise and sunset or dawn and dusk together. That's cool. Yeah, I love that. Oh, so good. So we get to do new things.
Yes. Now we get to start like throwing them around.
I know. So we're gonna, in the study group, what we're gonna do is, we were chatting about this, and so we'll spend about a week doing like conscious spreads, kind of like tarot spreads, where, you know, you'll select runes and place them in positions and then read them in a group, just to give us the practice of like reading them together. So we'll play with, over the next week, we'll have some posts roll out and we'll do some smaller ones, a couple, like a small, a medium, and a large, I think is how it's kind of planned. So we'll try like a 3 rune spread, and then I think like a 5 and a 7 or something along those lines. It might be like 3, 5, 9 or whatever. So just
3, 5, 9.
Yeah. So we'll play with that, sort of putting them together. I'm really excited. Can you tell I'm really excited? I guess the hardest thing is questions. Like, so I'd be curious, what kind of questions do you feel like you'd ask different questions of the runes than you'd ask of tarot?
I feel like it's really weird because I'm kind of torn between two thought processes on the runes. On the one hand, I feel like to do mundane readings with them is almost like beneath the runes.
Right?
Like what's my day going to be like today? I feel like that's almost like beneath it, right? But on the other hand, if you think of it like in terms of being like kind of Lenormandy, I mean, let's just throw a whole nother divination system out there. The way I use Lenormand is totally different than the way I use tarot. Yeah. And I feel like the runes sit between the two. Like it has the ability to be both, to be this really, you know, esoteric kind of high, like the higher conscious, higher self readings, but then also get down deep in the mundane. And so I guess that's why I'm kind of curious to see how the readings go, because I'm curious to see which way it's gonna go, because I feel like has, like, it sits in between. It could do both, which will be interesting.
Yeah, and I was just thinking as I was kind of playing with Nina's cards, I'm wondering if what I might do is try pulling spreads with cards initially, just because they have the visual images to remind me what they kind of mean. So I might try that, and then also try it with the physical runes and see what I think. Yeah, Glam Up 007 says, I ask advice what to know, so connected emotions with it, and likes three rune readings. Advice asking rune is very good. And Bunny Kisses, Christine says, like in the I Ching, it will tell you come back when you have a serious question.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to be curious to see how it plays out, because I want to be able to use it.
Tarot cards do that to me. Sometimes my tarot cards are like, all right, you can stop playing around now, and when you're ready to get serious, then we'll do a real reading. Because I have people that are like that are like, are you kidding me? You're not really serious. So just go on with yourself, do what you need to do, and come back when you're ready to have a real conversation. Like, but I put on my deck, so.
Yeah, I know. Me too, a little bit. So I totally get where you're going with that. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And then after a week of playing with spreads, we're going to move on to casting, and we're going to start and build, right? Like kind of start simple and then build from there. So we're going to start with just simple casting with a small selection of runes, simple casting with all the runes, and then just kind of ladder it up from there. So we'll be probably not getting together for another live chat until we're kind of through that sort of experience of spreads and then casts, and then we'll get back together online or on live stream. So that's going to be, I think, did we figure out it's going to be about a month?
I think it's in October. Yeah, I think it's October with it. I can look. I think it's, I want to say October. I have my calendar right here. Did I write it down? Was I smart enough to write it down?
I think I have it in my Google.
I was going to say, I think it's in the Google calendar. I have
October 3rd. Yeah, so Saturday, October 3rd, we'll get back together on live stream, and then we can all come together and be like, now that we have studied what the runes mean and we've actually played with them in like practice for like a while, now what are our impressions and kind of what are our takeaways, and what did we like? Do we like casting? Do we like spreads? Do we like both? I was just going to say, Jennifer said, I love the video someone shared where he cast in lots, like a handful, then interpret, then cast another handful and interpreted. That was fascinating. Oh, I could see that, like layering for sure. And let's see, auguries and signals. So what books are you using for information about casting? I don't have any books that talk. I don't think I have any books that talk about casting. So I'm going to be going off of probably online research or what people have shared in the group and things like that, and more intuitively. What about you, Dawn? Do any of your books really? I
have one book. I always forget to grab it. It's on the shelf behind me. It's the Norse runes book. I'll try to leave a link too. But what is his name? Morfont? No, that's not right. Anyway, I think it's just called Nordic Runes.
Yeah. I can picture the cover, so I know which one you're talking about.
It's green. It's not at hand. Oh, yes, it is. Nordic Runes. Okay, that's what it's called. Nordic Runes. I can see it. So It's got a great cover. Anyway, he has the whole like last third of the book is all about casting. So I haven't actually read it yet because I've only been going through the book as like we've been studying. So now that we're moving on to casting, I'll be reading that. But it's so far in all of my materials, it's the only one that I found that has a large chunk on casting. So I'll be curious to see what's actually in there.
Well, see, dang it, that's frustrating because I was planning to get the taking up the runes because I know that gets into like magical application.
I was going to say, actually, in all fairness, taking up the runes might. Well, I think it's mixed in.
I don't want to have to get 2 books. I just want to get one more book.
The thing with taking up the runes is that, since we're talking about books, so the entire book here, I'm trying to look how many pages, 390 pages roughly, is all of the 24 runes in detail. So it's almost 400 pages just on the runes themselves. So if you look, like I cannot find my camera. this whole section here is all about the individual runes. And then in the back here, there's just some additional information. But what's interesting about this book is she has like activities for each of the one. There's meditations. There's rituals. It's a lot more focused in on the kind of magical side of things, I think.
See, I didn't know nobody did that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. I definitely want to add that level to it for mine, but I feel like the other book is more of like a primer. Like that's kind of how I've been doing. I've been using the Nordic Runes book as like my starting point, and then diving into the Taking Up the Runes as the diving deeper. Because the Nordic Runes is a little bit more, I don't want to say generic, but it feels a little bit more broad. Whereas Taking Up the Runes feels very much into the ritual and the magic of it. There's also a lot of history, which is interesting. And I think it's really cool, but I don't know that it doesn't really go into like casting. It's more about I think the magical side of things, which I'm totally looking forward to adding that on too as well. But I feel like I need to learn how to read them first.
Fair enough. I mean, on the other hand, I don't know, do I need to read about casting? Like, maybe that sounds really naive, but I feel like if I could really overthink that part instead of just playing with it and seeing what makes sense to me as I try it. So maybe that's what I need to do, because I feel like what attracts me about that bigger book, The Taking Up the Runes, is the idea of weaving in the magic and the deeper dives so that I have something comprehensive. Because right now I really do have more overview kind of books that are great for like scratching the surface kind of thing. So I think, because I don't want to get 2 more books. I really don't. I think it's excessive for me personally, because I already have like three. I have 3.
Yeah, I mean, if you're only going to get 1 more book, I think I would get The Taking Up the Runes instead, because it does something different. Whereas the Nordic Runes book is really good, I feel like it's more of like a primer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Bunny Kisses says, inner self says, let's learn runes. Let's learn runes. Practical self says, no, you promised. Don't add more to your plate. I will say, though, it's really great. Like I try to remember to mention this regularly, because in the Facebook group, if and when you're ready, you can just pop in there and everything's organized into units, including the casting exercises and the spreads and everything, so that you can just move through it linearly whenever you want to join. Like, you don't have to be doing this at the same time we're doing it, or doing it, and all this stuff's going to stay. So you can totally, when you're ready to put more on your plate, go through it and, like, you know, revisit it in that way.
Or do like I do and just bounce around.
Bouncing around is good too. I can't do bouncing around on a lot of things. I'm very linear about some things, and then shush, peanut gallery. Peggy all in the background.
Oh no, I'm like the type of person that reads like 5 books at one time, because they're all in different rooms and all of that. You know, studying all these different things. Yeah, I'm all over the place.
I do a bit of that. Like, I have 3 books on the go right now. I have 1 here next to me. I've got 1 in my bedroom. You know what I mean? I've got 1 somewhere else. So, like, I can kind of just read where and when it makes sense to me. But yeah, just depends. Oh yeah, Christine says I'm not a bounce around. I get obsessed. That's fair.
Well, I have a little bit of that too. I mean, that's, you know, all those.
Yes. Sign, am I saying that right? In my opinion, casting is a more personal process. I took years to figure out what I do, but I would never call it the right way. Exactly. I feel like that's the thing with casting. And I watch a lot of like, yeah, like if you watch Kelly at the Truth and Story, actually it kind of cracked me up because her timing was like spot on, but she put a For the Love of Casting video up, I think a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. I think it was right around the time we were going to do our last live before we waited a week. And she talks about different casting methods, different things she casts. So it's not rune specific, but it was really interesting. And she does a lot of casting systems. So it's been enjoyable to listen to her talk about the different things that she's doing and how it works for her. But I agree. I think casting is one of those things that, like, you can play with, like, because you can cast on top of cards, you can cast by itself, you can cast on cloths, you can cast on nothing, you can, you know, there's so many different ways to do it. So I think finding your own way is going to be a big part of the journey for sure.
I would agree. I feel like that's kind of how I felt like coming into tarot, however many years ago that was. Now it's like I feel like I had to do the right spread, and I had to use the right keyword, and I had to have the right interpretation. And now I'm just like, throw it all down and what I see.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And somebody else is saying about casting. Oh, Jennifer said, I started casting based on a description from a novel, The Wolf and the Raven by Diana Paxson, and I just sort of played with it and figured out what worked for me. Excuse me.
Cool.
That sounds, yeah, that's cool.
That's the author of the Taking Up the Runes.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it says Diana. Well, it says Diana L. Paxson, but be curious to see. Well, she's written over 25 historical and fantasy novels, so it's a good bet.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay, now I'm going to have to check out her other books.
I know. Well, I at least want to read that one. Maybe that's how we get casting from her.
Maybe
she's got a ton of books. I just threw her into the search. She's got a bunch. Well, that's a thing.
Yep, that's going to be a thing now.
Yep.
The Wolf and the Raven is a retelling of a Norse myth. Interesting.
Oh, okay, okay.
More books.
Yeah. So much there. So that's it for now, I guess. Is there anything else you wanted to share with everybody?
No, I don't think so. I'm ready to move on to the actual working with them, playing with them. I've been like holding on to my set. I haven't even I kind of, because it was that noise. I play with it, but I haven't done anything with them.
Oh, these are the best. I've been carrying them with me everywhere, and they're surprisingly portable, but they don't feel too small, which is really interesting.
I think they're like such a great size. I am so glad thank you, Facebook, because this was a Facebook ad that I came across these. I was like, I'm usually irritated when Facebook pops up ads at me. I'm like, stop it. But this one, I'm like, ooh, click. That's why it keeps sending me stuff, because I click on it. But
I know, same. But yeah, I'm glad you found them, because these are amazing. And I was talking to Dana, Shadow Moon. Oh my gosh, I always do the thing. Shadow Moon Witch or Shadow Moon Priestess. I always forget which. I think it might be Shadow Moon Witch. Anyway, she actually had stumbled on these because, totally separately, because somebody had posted in a different group, maybe like bullet journaling, witches who bullet journal or something like that.
I put it in there because I'm in that group too.
And ended up scooping them up.
The witchy bullet journal. Yeah, because when I first posted about them, I sent the creator, the lady that creates these, I sent her an email and I'm like, so just so you know, I'm gonna shout this out. So you might get some orders. So hey, be ready. And then I'm like, and then every time she posts one, I'm like, I might need those too. I might need those. I haven't even used these ones yet, but
this is the problem, is she keeps posting new sets and you're like, but those are so pretty. And she's doing the witches runes now too. They're so tactile, yeah. Yes, Julie, there is a witchy Bujo group. I wish I could remember the name of it.
Oh, here, I can look.
Okay.
Let me see.
I think it's witchy bullet journal or something like that.
It is. Let me go to my groups. Where are my groups?
I think I'm actually in that group, but I don't participate in very many groups on Facebook. I'm really,
I don't really either. I have just a few that I'm like, well, obviously ours, but honestly, that takes the majority of my time.
Right? I know.
I do look at all of them. Why can I not find it?
Oh, I found The Wolf and the Raven though by Diana Paxson.
I think it's because my screen is oh my goodness. There's my little group. It's because my screen was scrunched small. How silly is that?
Yep. That'll do it.
I will grab, oh, here it is. Bujo Witches. So it's bullet journaling, witches, and pagans. Let me throw, even though totally not related to runes, but let me throw that in there.
Totally.
If you like journaling, and if you've watched my channel, I might like some journaling.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Make sure that you are subscribed to Dawn Michelle over at Boho Tarot. She just makes us buy all the things and shares all the pretties. So, that's important. It's important. It's important stuff. And if you want to hang out with us in the Facebook group, there's a link to that in the description box below, as well as a link to Dawn Michelle's channel. And you can check out the group and join. Again, you can join anytime. We've gotten a lot of questions about, is it too late? Can I jump in? You can jump in anytime. And if you want to find the content in order, if that's important to you, then you go into the Facebook group and you just click units and you can move through them in order, mark them as done, and it'll even keep track of your place for you and tell you you can continue where you started, all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you click the like button, comment, let us know your thoughts on this last et or how your rune studies are going for you. I am super excited to hear.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks everybody. We're gonna head out. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.